Well, crude oil, meanwhile, trading near $35 a barrel this morning, extending losses of over 5% in the last month. This morning, we're at $35.63, down about 1/4%. Despite falling crude oil, Michigan is seeing jumping gasoline prices. The state reporting prices at the pump were up 10 cents on average in the last week alone, the highest rise of any state in the United States, according to AAA. Joining us right now is former BP CEO, Lord John Browne. Lord John Browne, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. So characterize where we are right now from your standpoint in oil in terms of the supply and demand part of the story. Do you believe this price?
So
does it stay here?
It's around where it probably obviously should be. That's where the market is clearing. There's still a lot of supply. It's not just the US, it's Russia, all-time record high. It's the Middle East. It is the issue of Iran, how much production they'll make. So there's a lot of production around. It's not just one place. And so that has to clear and demand has to catch up. But then there's a very large amount of oil in inventory. And that grows daily. And before we see any response to price, that's got to clear as well. So I think we have to be very patient if we want to see an uptick in price. When, it's impossible to tell. Too many factors.
Gary.
Lord Browne, at the end of last year, the oil bulls were saying we were going to see major bankruptcies and restructuring in the first quarter. We're now here in April. We did not see it. Why haven't these companies that don't have the right cost of capital in terms of where the commodity price is, why are they still surviving?
Well, of course, there's been a lot of equity issuances. There's been quite a lot of restructuring discussions. And so it's a lag between what's needed to restructure the industry and what actually happens. It'll take time. And in my view, the time will come in the middle of the year where people can go no further. And they'll clearly have to do something and seek protection in some way.
Well, if you were back at BP and you were looking at a potential acquisition, would you wait for that to happen before you wanted to approach a target?
I'd wait a bit, but I think my experience always is this, that great assets, really great assets, never really sell cheaply. You know, I just think I'm not a real estate person, but I don't think you get a bargain when you start looking at the Rockefeller Center.
Lord Browne, what about the international situation? Does something happen at some point that makes the Saudis say, look, we are going to pull back? They've been very committed to not doing that, but they're suffering. You mentioned Russia is suffering. The economic situation is not good for big oil producers. So does a shoe drop there somewhere?
Well, it always takes longer than you think because there are plenty of reserves. Saudi can keep going for quite a lot of time. Russia, the ruble's so soft that the cost base has reduced hugely, so their margins are still standing up there. So I think things always take longer than you imagine. People wait till the last minute to do something, and why shouldn't they? They literally kick the can down the road, and they wait and wait.
We've come, Lord Browne, so far from the energy boom that we witnessed in this country, and now with prices at $35 a barrel. Where do prices need to be for us to see the healthiest energy industry in this country? Well,
it's impossible to tell, really, but it's obviously got to be higher than 35. And at the height of the boom, the price averaged about $90 for 10 years. So somewhere between the two. It's not a very helpful guidance. But most commentators are saying somewhere around the $50 to $60 area gives us the health to keep investing for the future. The thing that we have not yet seen is the impact of the reduction in capital expenditure. This is a very big deal.
Big impact.
But it will take time for this to come through. And I mean years. So today we're eating the seed corn for tomorrow, and that's got to be reversed, and that takes a price much higher than $35.
That's an important point, because companies today are choosing to pay out dividends. They want to hold on to that dividend as much as they can, and rather than increase the money in terms of R&D and
simply development.
CapEx.
Yes, developing known reserves it takes time to do, and they're not doing that.
Let me switch gears, Lord Browne, and ask you about social issues and corporations, because you were incredibly courageous when you first came out, and you wrote the book, The Glass Closet. Are you seeing a change in terms of corporate America today, in terms of responding to their people? I mean, we got a case right now in North Carolina, right?
So I think the corporate sector a lot of the corporate sector has got the idea that inclusion, which is what this is about, produces better engagement, produces better productivity from the team, the staff team. And so you can see it. Really great engaged companies make more money consistently than those that don't have good engagement. However, there's a lot of backsliding in this area. So I'd say that for society as a whole, the glass is half full. But constant vigilance is needed. There's always things that go backwards. What's happening in North Carolina is very, very disappointing. It's wrong. And I've always thought to myself, if you substituted for sexuality something to do with, let's say, gender, if this were women being treated this way or African Americans treated this way, the outcry would even be higher than it is today.
Such a good analysis, really good point. Lord Browne, good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for joining us, Lord John Browne. We'll be